Welcome back to the show, everybody. Hear a little bit of conversation there as I have a great friend on and guest today. For some of you that may have never heard of him, Elliot from Freelance Duck Hunting lives in Kansas and has been on here before. We've hunted before. We've got videos together. Great friend, and I really appreciate his friendship and the knowledge he has. Been hunting a lot longer than me, and I do like learning from him. Elliot, thanks for coming on the show today again.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. I love it when we get together and talk and share a podcast. Or we even did a 4th of July. You did 4th of July at my house one time a couple
Yeah,
years
yeah,
ago.
I did.
So I just love it when we get to hang out and talk, like-minded people and talking waterfowl hunting and everything else. So I love it.
Yeah, I didn't fail to mention that. We've had great times. You guys had me over, stayed the night, got to hang out with your family, and Aiden was there. That was a really good breakup of that work trip that I took out there. So might have to do that again this year. Anyways, we got a lot of topics, guys, we want to cover today, and also glad to be back recording podcast, and we'll stay rolling. So many different crazy things. Got a lot of episodes coming out, but today we want to dive right in to some topics that can be controversial just because people have their own opinions and everything. But I've really been wanting to have you on, Elliot, to talk about some of these things, just to hash things out and then hear from other people. But also, so let's start with wounded bird loss, because that one rings a big bell in my head and gets me, I guess you would say, almost emotionally involved in it, like, because it's such a big thing to me. And you've cleared up a lot of times how you'll say, I know I'm not perfect and I know I've made mistakes in the past, but the goal is to get better, right?
Right.
And I think I like how you preface that, because I would say the same thing. So before we get into this conversation about this, I too, because I've had people comment and say, "Oh, you're trying to sound humble in a self-righteous way," and I'm thinking, how in the world what are you? How do you even do that? Like, I don't know. People understand people differently, but I do want to preface it by saying I've made tons of mistakes, and I'm still going to make mistakes. I don't want to, but I am human, and I hope to do my best not to. But there's things that we do as duck hunters that if we take the time to think about it, to pay attention, to try to get better, that we can fix. And one of these things is wounded bird loss. And I don't know how you want to jump into this, Elliot, but I really want to hear. I think you have numbers that you've put out there.
Right.
It's actually mind blowing, and if you care and you're ethical and all, it will make you think, and it'll make you try to get better. So let's just jump right into that. How many birds are lost, are wounded every year, that go out and die, that they kind of guesstimate?
Yeah. Well, I know now this study is fairly old. I have not seen any modern studies, but I know there was a study done by Tom Roster. And they came with the conclusion that 25% of the birds that you shoot at fly away wounded. So those are that's the number that I go with. I don't, it could be more than that, it could be less than that. But what we know is that on every single hunt, birds are being wounded. I mean, some of those birds, we've all cleaned birds that we see scars where they've been shot, where they've healed. So some portion of the birds can reheal, but a lot of them don't. A lot of them fly off and slowly wither away and die. So I'm always looking for more information, more stats on it, because I wish that they would do a more of a modern study with modern ballistics. But 25% of the birds that are shot at fly away wounded and unrecovered is the number that I saw.
Wasn't there a number that you had quoted or something? I know it was an old study, but wasn't there like a number they threw out there, birds? I mean, 25% is unreal.
Right. Yeah, I don't recall what that number is, so I don't want to
Okay.
guesstimate, but it's a mind-blowing stat.
It is.
I refer to it as waterfowl's dirty little secret,
Mm-hmm.
because I can't think of another sport, another hunting recreational activity where you're wounding that number, that high percent of birds. If you think deer hunting, pheasant and quail hunting, the sheer opportunity that waterfowlers get to shoot at birds
Mm-hmm.
provides us with the opportunity to wound a lot of birds.
Mm-hmm.
And
True.
I'd like to be corrected if I'm wrong, but I feel as though by far more waterfowl are wounded and lost than any other type of hunting.
Oh, yeah. I 100% agree with that. um, so what do you think we got to do as waterfowlers to fix that?
Well, I think from my end, mine goes back to, and on my podcast, I've been asking people the question of how much value do you place on the individual life of a duck? Because I'm curious as to what people's thoughts are. I think the first thing people need to do is just think about it. And I've done a lot of thinking about it. Just like you said, I have taken 4 shots. It's something I've tried to get better at. I continually try to get better at, because I feel as though an individual life of a duck is valuable enough that I'm going to do everything in my power not to wound it and send it away in a place where it can suffer. I think of, like, we all eat cow, we eat steak, we eat hamburger, we eat chicken. When you go to euthanize a cow, for example, they make the most humane kill possible. I've been to a slaughterhouse. They do these little shot things, and it's like it's an instant death. And everyone would agree that when you're killing a cow, you want as quick and painless a death as humanly possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone agrees, well, we don't want any suffrage from that cow. We want it to kill. We want it to die fast and painlessly. And ultimately, that should be our same goal with ducks, is for them to die quickly and painlessly. Right. So for me, it starts by thinking about how much do you actually care about making sure the game that we chase dies quickly and painlessly. And for me, I care quite a bit. I'm soft-hearted. I don't like thinking about wounding. I don't like thinking about, when I come up on a duck in the marsh and it's got a broken wing or it's acting sick, it makes me feel bad.
Right.
Honestly.
Yeah.
It makes me feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to do everything I can to make sure it's a quick, painless death. And I think that's where it starts. It starts with these kind of conversations. It starts with people just thinking about it and thinking about their thoughts on the subject.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the other thing too is I mean, I've never been cruel to animals, and I think you probably got something psychological or something bad going on in your life, that if you're cruel to animals, no matter if it's a little sparrow all the way up to a bull elk or something like that. But let's put it this way. Even if you capture what you shot, say if you wound one and you kind of sail it and it goes down, and again, I would say, I'm not going to throw a percentage out there, but majority of the time, if that happens, it's maybe because it wasn't close enough. Mm-hmm. Maybe you took it out, shot that bird out of range, but I've seen guys make a bad shot at 15 yards just because they're shooting behind and clip the wing and the bird still kind of goes off, so it can happen, but it's a lot more rare, right?
I feel so.
But let's say if you make a bad shot and the bird hits the water, and he falls right where you shot him, and you either, most of the time, I would say a lot of us would just shoot it and finish him before we even send the dog or before we go pick it up ourselves. But say if you don't and you pick the bird up and he's still blinking, still alive, I don't like that, right? I don't even like to have to wring the neck or to put a finish in the back of the head or however people do it. There's other ways to do it too, but yeah, it's just like, man, I don't want to do that. I know it happens. I know it happens deer hunting. People, it can happen with the rifle or a bow, but yeah, that's just not something any, I believe, hunter or even guy that fishes wants to do. I mean, fishing's totally different, but at the same way, going back to what you were saying about the value, because we could probably stay on this for the whole episode, because I have a lot of thoughts on this. You were I think did you bring up fishing, how people, the sensitivity, because first off, if you talk about a cow or a cat or a dog that's hurt, it draws a lot more emotions to it than if a fish is flopping around on the deck, right?
Right.
But it's still alive. It's still a life. So what causes that emotional attachment to one versus the other?
Right, yeah, and I have talked a lot about that of like putting. I think it'd be fun to put out. I've thought about doing this when I interview guests. It's like, okay, which one do you value the life of more, a deer or a duck? And they say deer. Okay, deer or elk, and it's like get exactly the point where how much do you value the life of like no one cares about catching a mouse in a trap, right?
No.
Kill it quickly, no big deal, throw it in the trash.
Mm.
So we give very, very little value to the life of a mouse as far as our emotional value. But there's a scale that goes forward,
Right.
and it's just these kind of conversations where you're thinking about, do I care? And for me it comes down to this: do I care about the individual life of a duck enough not to kill it myself? No, I don't, because I know that I can eat it. It's part of life. It's how it goes. It's not going to hurt the population. Do I care enough about the life of a duck to not shoot a 75-yard shot? Yes. So there's like a scale in there as to my actions are going to follow from how I value that bird, how much I value that life. I value the life of a deer enough to not pull the trigger. Now, I'm not a deer hunter, but if I was, I wouldn't take shots at a deer running.
Right.
Because I value that life enough that I don't want to shoot it in a way it's going to run off and be wounded for days and I'm not going to find it. So it's just a scale to me of how much do you value, how much worth do you think it has, and making sure that your actions match up with your emotional feel of that, because there's really no right. Ultimately, there's no right or wrong. We all agree you shouldn't torture animals, but as far as like the wounding thing, I think different people feel different things, and I'm not sure there's really a right or wrong, other than we can all agree we don't want to wound birds, we don't want to lose birds, we don't want them just going off and suffering. I think that 99.9% of hunters would agree with that. So.
Right. Yeah, and kind of going back to the wounded bird thing, because just because they don't look like they're hurt or they don't go down doesn't mean they don't go off later and die, right?
Right.
And it's how far were you shooting them to make contact with them, but not even break their wing? I mean, not that that's even what you want to do. You want, I mean, perfect scenario is headshot and just fold them like wet. That's the most satisfying, best way to dispatch or shoot a bird. But let's say if you didn't make a great shot and you wing them or something and they still go down and you retrieve the bird. But like, how many times, even if you're not seeing feathers come off, how many public land hunters are hitting birds? Maybe they don't even know they're hitting and those birds are going off and dying later. It has to be, the numbers have to be astonishing, I would imagine.
Right. Yeah, I'll have to look those numbers up again because I have seen them and they are astonishing. And everyone's seen like the twitch, like when you shoot at a duck you don't see feathers, but you see that little body twitch right when you shoot. That's them taking steel or whatever metal you're using. And a lot of those birds fly off. And I'm sure there's, like I said, there's a good percentage of those birds that don't die. But every time you see that little body twitch, you know they're eating at least a few pellets.
Yeah, and that's yeah. Well, I mean, can we just put that? I think that's a big part of shot selection, right?
Right.
Because you had brought something out about. So, actually, I'm gonna do a podcast on this by myself, but I screenshotted my numbers, and we'll try not to get ahead of myself and not miss things either. But I screenshotted my hunt stats for this season. I ended up at 49.54% on my
shooting percentage.
Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you were counting shots on cripples on the water too.
I was, yeah. I fixed a couple of the hunts that I can remember, but for the most part, I left all the rest of it because I just.
So you're deep into the 50s. So realistically, if because I feel like you shouldn't count, if you want a true shooting percentage, you should only count shots on the wing. Or if you choose to water swat them,
if it goes down,
you count too.
Yeah,
right. But after it goes down and wounded, and you're cleaning up, then you shouldn't count those. So you're realistically, you were probably in the mid 50s.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I was kind of thinking maybe low 50s, 52. And it's funny because before season, I said I'd be happy if I was like, man, if I'm low 40s, I'd be pretty happy. Not because I'm thinking I missed, but I think shooting even 40% and above, I think that's pretty deep. I mean, I agree. I think I will say this. I do think people think they shoot better than that, to be honest with you. I
Oh,
think
absolutely,
they
absolutely.
think in their minds, oh, I'm definitely, 50%. And I'm like, man, I bet you majority of people, and I'm not saying this to toot my own horn or nothing like that at all. I just think we don't realize how many shells you shoot, because the other nice thing about this, excuse me, is I'm tracking how much ammo I shot for the season too. Because I'm like, how much am I actually shooting? Am I
Hmm.
shooting 1 case, 2 cases, 3 cases? So it's really nice to have this information. But I didn't mean to get too far off track. I want to talk about this later about the hunt stats. But I wanted to go back to shot selection. By doing this and by tracking your stats, how many shells you shoot per hunt for the birds, yada yada, that is going, if anybody has any drive towards competitive nature for themselves, because it's not about anybody else, it's about yourself, right?
Right.
If you have any drive for that, you are going to be a lot more selective on what you shoot and
Yeah,
how far you shoot.
absolutely. Yeah. If you want to limit your shells, the number one way to do it is start keeping track of your shooting percentage. And it's not for a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
because you do have to be dedicated and diligent to it.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm like a numbers guy. And for me, keeping track of the shooting percentage, it has enhanced my enjoyment of waterfowl hunting
It is.
tremendously.
Yeah,
It's so fun.
it
You don't
is.
have like a 6 for 6 day or 7 for 7 day. You just feel on top of the
Yep,
world. And
yep.
it's and that just trims all your shot section gets fine tuned and trimmed once if you enjoy that type of thing.
Yes, and I know guys like me and you. That isn't probably for everybody, because I
No,
always try to
right,
get people around me to do it. I try, especially the young guys, because they're young and they're a lot more easier to influence and be like, hey, keep these stats. And I know a couple of the young guys that go with me and we hunt together and friends with their dad and stuff. They've been doing it. I don't know if they did it faithfully through the whole season, because, like you said, it does take commitment and it does take a
mm-hmm.
dedication. And a lot of times you don't feel like doing it or going back in, but it's so worth it at the end of the season to go back and
Right.
look at those numbers. I'm just a numbers guy, so I find it really enjoyable.
Before I was hovering around 45% lifetime
Wow.
shooting percent.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I really got into it, I was like, you know what? I actually started competing against Aiden.
Mm-hmm.
And I jumped up to the last, like 3 years, I shot in the 60%.
Holy
And
cow.
but it's not because I'm a great shot. It's 80% shot selection.
Yeah, it is.
It's like I'm to the point where if I'm not gonna get, and this ties into the wounded loss for me. My rule is I'm not gonna take a shot unless I'm mad that I missed the shot. Because if I'm mad that I missed the shot, I know it's a high percentage shot.
Mm-hmm.
If I fling it out there and I'm not mad that I missed, it's because it wasn't a good shot. It wasn't a good shot selection.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of my rule for myself. I have to be able. Has to be so close. Unless it's wounded. Once a bird's wounded, you pull the trigger until you empty out. But as far as like pulling the trigger on a bird, I want to be mad if I miss it. That's kind of my rule.
That's that's a great rule. Well, I was talking to Kevin, a friend of mine today, and I said, Kevin, my shooting percentage, I tracked it. I don't think he did, but I was saying my shooting percentage was, I wish I would have separated each gauge
Right.
to track that, because I said, I know for a fact, I don't know, I couldn't show you numbers, but I know for a fact, my shooting accuracy with my 28 gauge was better than my 12 or my 20. And I'll tell you why. It's not because I shoot better with that gun, I aim better, there's less kick, less recoil, blah, blah, blah. It's because I know I have to stay within this certain distance. And I will tell you, Elliot, up and down, that I take more time aiming with that guy. I know a lot of shotgunning is like natural, just how you mount the gun and how
Mm-hmm.
you can't overthink it. But I do know that every time I pull that gun up to my shoulder, 95% of the time is like I'm very focused, because I don't want to. I know I got to make the shot count, because there's a lot less pellets in the case. So it's not about, oh, that gun's so much better, it's so good. It's because my shot selection that I'm taking with that gun,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's you're saying, that's exactly what it comes down to, is all shot selection. And we get lazy with 12. I know I do. I get lazy with the 12 gauge when I shouldn't be because, I'm not thinking this consciously, but maybe subconsciously I'm thinking, oh, it's a big gun. I'm going to knock this bird down, like it's not a big deal. Whereas I'm really trying to put it on the mark when I'm shooting a sub gauge.
Yeah, and I love that mentality of it. It just goes back to the value of the bird. You look at like a mallard, a beautiful mallard drake. That's a spectacular creature.
Mm-hmm.
Everything about it to me is just spectacular, and I want to kill it and I want to eat it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's beautiful and spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
So while I'm killing it and eating it, I want to make absolutely certain when I pull the trigger, I can clean kill it.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't. I lose birds. I wound them just because of my error. But that is the kind of importance I personally want to put into the value of that bird. It's a serious thing to me. It's a serious thing to take a life of an animal. It's not a callous thing. It's a serious thing.
Right.
And so I want to give it the respect to do everything that I can to clean kill it. Yep. And that means passing up some shots for me.
Yep. And you know what, Elliot? Never once have I regretted passing up a shot that was questionable ever. Now, I know sometimes we've talked about it like, oh, that bird worked in, and we thought, okay, they're going to get another, like say if it was at 25 yards, I'm like, one more pass, and they're going to just do it in the decoys, and then they never come back. Yeah, you're like, I could have took that shot, whatever. But I'm talking about shots that were just that, it's like, no, that's not the shot I want. Like, and it's not just about passing shot left to right, comes straight at you. It's like maybe they were close and they were kind of decoying, but they were hard right. And if you're a right-handed shooter, you can only twist so far that way. Right. Or you're shooting out of a kayak. You're not going to make a good shot, even though the bird's really close. So you pass on it. You'll never regret that shot. But what you're always going to regret, and thankfully I don't have those as much anymore, but longer ago, I'd always regret, like, I shouldn't have took that shot. Why didn't I do that? Like that was not, I shouldn't even shot at that. That's where you regret,
Yeah. One thing about it that I have to continue to remember to consider myself, it's like you and I, so 90% of 10% of the hunters kill 90% of the ducks. That's just how it is. Your average hunter in Kansas hunts about 3 to 5 times a year, kills about 5 to 10 ducks. Okay. So those guys, to ask those guys, or your 16, 17, 18-year-olds that just don't have any hunts under the belt, to ask those guys to be as careful about shot selection as guys like us, that we've got so many hunts under our belts, I think is a really, really big ask. If you're hunting 3 to 5 times a year, you're not passing up shots.
No, I agree.
It's like, you're just not. So really, I think who we're talking to more in this conversation is that 10% that hunts 30, 40, 50, 60 times a year, more than anyone else, because it is kind of it is for us to ask a guy that only hunts 3 times a year to just give up opportunities at 45 to, whatever, I think is probably not appropriate.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that and brought that up, because, people, we're so, passionate, I guess, about what we do. It kind of comes off as like that's the only way to do it,
right?
And sometimes it's good to be on a platform like we are sometimes, because we get called out a little bit, and then if you're any type of person that tries to self-evaluate, you'll look at yourself and like, you're probably right about that. Maybe I need to. That being said, there's also another side of it is I'm not into participation trophies, and people, that's the common thing now, is they want to give a trophy to every little thing out there. I'm not about that. I'm not trying to make it where we're just not standing for what we believe in. But at the same time, I do think when, like, being on a platform like this, I've noticed a lot of really guys that I respect do try to hear out and listen to other people's side of the story. You know what I mean? So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's so true. That's not even fair to ask. And it's not just about age, because there's some 18-year-old hunters that are really good duck hunters that they've been hunting since they were in diapers. Their dad's dragging around them a sled. And because I want to be sensitive to that generation too, because I know there's a lot of them that listen to this and they're like, you know what, man, I'm picky on my shot selection. I'm only 18, but they've been doing it for a long time and they had really good mentors, you know. So
Right.
it's not even really age, because there's 40-year-olds that go out for their first duck hunt and they don't really know because they have had no one to teach them. So that's where I think me and you, yourself and me, like to try to teach people, and hopefully we
Yes.
can make a difference and like make people think about that stuff, you know.
Yeah, and I would say the challenge for everyone is to think about this topic and talk to your hunting partners and
Mm,
friends about it.
mm,
Just bring up the conversation and talk about it and think about it. Make it part of your mental space. Because I think that sometimes we just get so into the camaraderie of the hunt and stuff
yeah.
that we just stop thinking about that aspect. So just spend some time at least thinking about
Mm,
wounded loss and shot selection
yeah.
for
That's
everybody.
I mean, the only way we're ever going to grow, each of us individually, is to self-evaluate and think about things and spend some time meditating, thinking about it, you
Right.
know, and be a thinker, you know, like, okay, just because we've been doing it this way for this long, does that mean that's right? You know?
Mm-hmm.
But no, that's really good topic. And another thing I would say about shot selection, I feel like not, maybe not at first, but I do feel like even if you're a newer hunter, you kind of get that subconscious feeling like, I don't think that was the shot I should have taken. I think even
Sure,
though
sure.
you could be new, there's something in you that kind of knows like, maybe you're not good at the timing of when to stand up, or maybe you're not good at distances yet, but something inside of you after you stand up or right before you pull the trigger, like, I shouldn't probably do this, but your reaction's to shoot anyways, you know. I think all
Yep.
those things are going on. And
And I love this phrase. It makes me laugh every time I say it. But if you're in a blind and one of your buddies says, "What do you think? Should we try it?"
yeah.
The answer is no.
Yes, absolutely. And I heard you said that. I'm like, Elliot, you're preaching right now. Because it's
It's
like,
funny. I don't know why that makes me laugh so much. It just
oh,
does.
it is funny because I can't tell you how many times I've heard that, like, especially
Yeah.
like on guys goose hunting in big groups. Well, what do
Hmm.
you guys want to do? You want to try it? Or
Yeah.
what do you think? You know, it's like, nope, nope, don't do it. Don't
Yeah.
do it. You're already
That
answering.
means it's 70 at least.
Yeah. You're answering your own question, you know, and
Yeah.
and then no birds fall. You're like, oh, well,
Yeah. Or one does, and
yeah,
three
one
more kind
sails
of
out.
limp off wounded.
Yeah. Yeah. So, man, I don't know. Anything else we could cover on part of that wounded bird loss shot selection?
The only thing I would say is controlling your third shot is that's the best place to start. Is a group comes in, you don't have to shoot three times. Like sometimes you'll see on poster boards like rules for hunting clubs and never
Hmm.
always empty your gun. You don't have to shoot three times. If your third shot's at 65, 70 and there's no wounded birds, just don't do it.
Hmm.
Don't. Limit your third shell is the best way to save money and decrease wounded loss. I'd say that's the best way to do it.
Yep. 100% agree with you on that. Yeah. And I know guys that will just go out with a over and under.
Mm-hmm.
Because I hunted with an over under for quite a while. And I remember my buddies next to me, not that I was shooting less, but I was, because I only had two shells. And they would always be running out before I did. And it wasn't because wouldn't have shot that third shell if I didn't have it. But it was kind of nice to, after a while, I'm like, you know what? How often do we ever knock it down after that third shell? So why even do that? You know,
Yeah.
especially on a really windy day, Elliot. You know what I mean? If once those birds open their wings, really one shot is about all you can get. And after that, when they open their wings and catch that wind, they're gone so fast. I mean, you
Yeah,
know,
those days are rough.
yeah. Yeah. So that's a good point. I definitely, if you can force yourself to do it, and like you said, unless they're crippled, you need to let them have it. But
Or they're still in range. I mean,
yeah.
sometimes if you really finish them, you can get third shots still within 30 yards. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's just think about that third shot. If the third shot isn't what you take on the first shot and it's not wounded, there's no point in pulling the trigger.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Okay. So we're in the middle of this episode now. Um, Guys, Elliot has his own. Tell us about your podcast, Elliot. You got a fairly new podcast, and I'm sure it's doing
I've got
well.
10 episodes out now. It's the North American Waterfowler podcast. So I started right about the beginning of the year, and I'm putting out episode a week. and I'm just enjoying it. I'm having a great time, great guests, and you're going to be on it. We're kind of trading off, which is going to be great. So I'm loving it. I'm loving everything about it. I'm motivated to do it, and I'm just having the time of my life with it, honestly.
Yeah, and I love your artwork and what you got going on there, and your logo. It just looks really good, and I know it's going to do really well. And guys, I pretty much listen to every episode. I haven't listened to the ones that are on. What you have another opportunity there for some extra content. What's
Right. So I've got a Patreon account. It's patreon.com/freelance duck hunting, and I put some of the episodes over there. So you have to be a patron. And a lot of times I'll do like an hour and a half with the guest, and I'll do an extra bonus half hour
oh,
that'll
nice.
go over there. Or sometimes if there's just some sensitive stuff I want to talk about, but I don't. For example, I just interviewed Jake from Chasing Green, and he's an Arkansas duck hunter who's been spending a ton of time. He hunts most of the time in Kansas, and he's actually thinking about moving up here. So I wanted to ask him, it's like, what is so great about Kansas that's drawing you out of Arkansas? Well, that's not something I really want the public as a Kansas hunter.
Yeah.
I don't really want to push that to the public, so I'll slip that in onto Patreon. Stuff like that, where I can just be a
So is
little
it
bit
that
more
whole
free.
episode that's on there, or there's some of it public?
I know that we did a whole hour and a half, and we did a deep dive into hunting in big groups and why because Jake loves doing that. He loves hunting 6, 7, 8 guys, and I just don't understand it. So we did a whole deep dive on that, and I'm learning that in Arkansas, Louisiana, duck hunting is so deep into the culture, it affects social status. They get off a lot of times from school on the first day of it's like it's culturally relevant in some of those towns, and that's in Kansas. That's totally foreign to me that duck hunting could be like pop culture. But in Arkansas, a place like that, it is. And so we talked a lot about Southern culture, waterfowl hunting, and then the whole big group thing. He helped me try to understand because he and Aiden, they had 4 guys, and they found a bunch of birds, and their plan was to go out and recruit a bunch more guys. And that just blew my mind because
Holy smokes.
that concept is so foreign to me.
Yeah.
But I know Jake is a great guy. I know Aiden. So we spent a good half an hour just discussing what's beneficial to him, what's he getting from that, which is kind of tied into the Southern culture as well a little bit. It was a really interesting podcast.
So, but I'm saying that whole episode is not on the open platform. It's in the Patreon.
It is on the open platform. Only the part about Kansas versus Arkansas is on Patreon. It just came out today.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, I like how you're doing that too. That's kind of a good way to get a little bit more. Yeah, you don't have to be so maybe politically correct.
Right. You can speak a little more freely because we've got to be a little careful and cognizant too.
Yeah.
You can, but when it's like, like I do a video live feed there too that you can watch, and maybe there's like 7, 8 people watching at the time, or 10, and so you can just feel a little freer around 10 than to where you're pushing out to everyone. Not that we're being phony. It's just you got to be careful what you say.
Yeah. No, you do.
Because sometimes with as many words as we say, it's easy to just say something stupid without thinking about it.
Elliot, is that not the truth?
Yes, it is.
It's scary. I pause a lot in my podcast. Let's put it that way, because I try to think about. Because, like you said, I'm me, and I'm not trying to change that. But yeah, it is easy to stupid, and I wonder how many times. Maybe I'm thinking too highly of myself, but I know on some forums from people sent me, because I don't get on those at all. I told them, don't send me that. I don't want to see it. I don't care what those guys say. But I've had people send me little screenshots of forums of what people were saying about me on episodes. I'm like, okay, so I guess haters take the time to listen to podcasts too. But I'm like, man, I gotta, like they'll take a part of what you said, just like politics, and not tell the rest of what you said, which totally explains why you said what you said. But so really it is a lose-lose in some ways if someone's really trying to get you. But yeah, either way, you still got to be careful. Well,
ultimately what we do, we want people to feel emotion one way or another. I don't say things that make people mad on purpose, but we don't want people to be bored. When you have content you're putting out publicly, you want people to love it, or people to be not necessarily offended by it, but you want them to have emotion from it.
Exactly.
Because a lot of times if you don't like something, you go back to it and listen to it more than if you do even. So it's a good place to be. If you're not getting negative criticism at all, then you're not doing something right.
Yep. And the other thing is too, is I've got the most feedback from the episodes that I can was truly I'm pretty much myself all the time. I don't try to hide anything, but like the ones that I was very emotional about and passionate about, those were the best feedback. Man, I love that episode, or whatever. So yeah, if you did, it's definitely the route you want to go. But yeah, guys, check out Elliot's podcast, The North American Waterfowler, and I believe it's on every platform, right, Elliot?
Right. That's right.
Cool. Yeah, so go check it out, guys. A lot of great, man. If you want to be a better duck hunter, if you want some knowledge from someone that's been doing it a long time, definitely go check that out. Okay, let's jump into hunt stats. What's going on with that? We've not pre-talked about this, so I really don't know, but I'd like to hear what's going on, what's your plans, new features, whatever. I want to hear it.
This has been my baby for years. So I started out on Excel spreadsheet, and I love Excel spreadsheets, and I had the master of all Excel spreadsheets where I had data flying everywhere. But it was just my dad and I that were keeping track of all our hunting data. So how many times you hunt, how many birds you harvest, shooting percentage, weather, everything. And I remember telling my dad, it'd be so cool if I could have this turned into a website. And this is before I started the YouTube channel and anything. I thought, because I still had to tinker with it, and spreadsheets are clunky and messy. And so this was kind of a dream of mine, just to have it turned into, like, you enter the data and then it kicks out everything you want to see about your waterfowl hunting experience. And eventually I had it made into a website and then an app, but it was still just kind of very amateurish. And so I'm to the point now where I'm wanting to invest a little more money into it, get it looking more professional, upgrade some of the features. So we've got a ton of stuff going right now. We just finished. I had a professional designer redesign the look, and that's kind of where you're seeing some of the logo and stuff on the podcast, because I've got some professional logos I'm porting over and using I'm trying to brand them both together, basically. The podcast, the app. So right now it's Freelance Hunt Stats. We're changing the name of it to the North American Waterfowler. It'll be NorthAmericanWaterfowler.com, or on the App Store, it'll just be the North American Waterfowler. So we're changing the name, completely updating the graphics. I'm trying really, really hard to get to where you can add a picture. I put out a survey of what people want, and by far what people want to be able to do is add a picture to their hunt. So you log your hunt for the day, and then you'll be able to attach a picture to it, and hopefully it'll be a little thumbnail. So when you pull that up to remember it in the past, you've got a picture there. It's a lot.
Oh yeah.
And that's why I started keeping all this stuff. I love waterfowling enough. Like, I want to be able to look back 10 years and remember hunts. I want to remember, who was I with? What did I do? What was the weather like? And if you attach a picture to it, now you're jogging all of this memory into your brain. Oh yeah, that was the day I was with Titus. We went on that lake, we shot that little Buffy, right? And so we're making that upgrade. We're going to upgrade some leaderboard stuff. Like right now, we've got a leaderboard system where every type of species of duck has a different point value. A mallard drake is 5, a pintail 6, a canvasback 7, teal is 3. But it's just a universal one. So what I would like to do is change it so you can sort it by flyways. So you'll have, where do I stand? Who shot the most mallards in the Pacific Flyway or the Central Flyway? And I want to go beyond that to, like, state. Who shot the most mallards in the state of California? So I'm trying to hone down that experience. And also I want to bring it over to crews, because I know you and your friends actually do this on the side. You can create a crew right now, like all the Flyways collectives. We have a crew, and I can go in and look and see how many birds is Titus shot. The one thing I can't see is location data. Location data is completely hidden. No one else can ever see your location data. But I can see how many birds Titus has shot. I can see everything about his data, because he has accepted my invite to a crew. I'm going to bring the leaderboards over to that crew as well. So now you can just compete with your friends, apart from the way it is now. So those are the kind of the big. I hope. I don't know. I might be biting off more against you. I'm going to get as much of this done as I can, depending on budget. But also, a big ask has been dog retreats.
Yes.
That's on the radar as well.
Yes, that would definitely be. That was one of my things that I was requesting for sure. Yeah, that'd be great. So
you'd be able to enter your own dog, like you create your dog's name, and then on the hunt you just pick which dog it is. So over the years, as your dog passes, you still have all the data for that dog, and you can go back and sort and say, how many, gosh, I'm blanking on your dog's name.
Rocky, yeah.
Rocky. When Rocky's passed on 10 years, you can still go back and look at all Rocky's hunts.
Mm-hmm.
How many birds is Rocky? Because he'll always be in the system for you because
Mm.
you inputted the name.
Yeah. Yeah, because I track those myself right now anyways, so that'd be nice just to have on there where I could put it there instead of just in my phone or something.
Right.
When you were talking about the specific flyways like the Pacific, you know, and so on and so forth, you could still, there'll still be a filter where you can see it for the whole,
yes,
everybody too as well, just like it is now.
So you'll have the whole U.S., you'll have Canada, you'll have by state, you'll have by flyway, and then you'll have the option of doing it by crew.
Okay.
And you can see total bird numbers, pintails, mallards, teal, wood ducks, Canada geese, and you have it points by per hunt, total points, and it's pretty fun right now. But the problem with leaderboards now is unless you're like hunting 60, 70 times a year, you're not going to be in the top 10. Mm-hmm. It's just too exclusionary. But once you can bring it down to crews and states and stuff, then I think people will have people that like that kind of thing will have more enjoyment of seeing themselves rise up and down the different leaders, if that's something you find entertaining.
Right. Yeah. It looks like you got, when I was looking today, I hadn't put in my vet hunt birds from Saturday and Sunday. And that gave me a really good boost to get up there, but that's it now. Well, I guess there's late goose, so we'll see what we got going. I've got some hunts lined up for that, but yeah, there was a lot more guys that are in the system now. It seems like, huh? It was like,
right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, not that they're really tracking. I could tell they don't really put much in there, but there's more names.
Right. Yeah. Even down to like some guys that just have one entry a year. Yeah. We picked up a decent number this year. And right now, if you want to check it out on iOS and Android, it's Hunt Stats, or the website is freelancehuntstats.com. They're connected. So if you log in on the website, it goes to the app and vice versa. It's all connected. But that's how you can find it right now. But we picked up some good number of users this year.
Guys, it's so easy. Honestly, it don't take, let me think. I'm going to be legitimately fair here. It does not take over 2 minutes, and I think I'm exaggerating. I mean, once you start using enough, I feel like it takes me 45 seconds to a minute to put in what I want to put in, unless I'm putting a bunch of notes and saying something about what happened. I mean, it's just quick. It's simple. It's a little app on their phone that I got on my iPhone, and it's so nice. So, you know, if you like numbers and you like tracking that stuff, even if you don't, I think if you forced yourself to do it, eventually you would like doing it, and I do believe you'll be thankful for the data that you have over the years. You get 5-10 years down the road, you're like, man, I'm so glad I did that. You know,
because and you can study your own. You know, I've got one place I was studying within the last couple of months because I've got over 10 years of data in there. Because you can go backlog all your old data. If you have it, you can always go put it in. And I was just studying a place, and it's like, okay, so I'm not always successful in here. What's the key? So I'm sorting it by south winds. How do I do it this place when the wind is south? And I found that the southwest wind days is when I'm by far the most effective in this one hole. So there's observational data where you just like think it, but you can put it to the numbers and really see over time what type of weather conditions create the best hunting in particular places that you hunt.
Yep. And to me, that's the biggest reason why I do it. After 1 year or 2 years, you're not going to have that much to make that decision. Also time of year too, Elliot, you know, like when did I go here? And oh man, I've been doing it for 7 years now, and I look back at my deals and I'm putting the time range in on the filter, and I'm like, my goodness, when I hunted here the first week of December, the last 12 hunts versus when I hunted a week before, a week after for the other 10 hunts, way better to go, because I believe the longer I've hunted, I start thinking there's definitely historical dates, I think, that are just a good time frame to be at certain places. And that's for like, to me, that's the more important thing. That the challenge and the competition's cool and everything, but like the more important thing to me is like the data that I get on like types of wind directions and where at and times a year, for sure.
I agree 100%. Yeah, the leaderboard stuff is just fun little cherry on top. It's really, that's not where I spend my time when I'm on there. I spend my time looking at my data, and you can actually look at the global data too of kind of what the cumulative numbers are by state, and that stuff. So there's just so much searching you can do on there. I actually was contacted by someone doing a study for one of their college courses, and they used the whole site for some paper they were writing.
Oh, wow.
Just because there's just lots of filters and data you can pull from it.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So how was your season this year?
A little bit down, but not horrible. I came on strong. I had some really nice hunts, really fun hunts in December and in early January when it got really cold. But we're in this drought, and we're in this kind of drought. Some of my more places I really love to hunt are just not there. They're just gone. So my numbers weren't horrible, but they were down. But overall, I'd say this is another thing I'm going to add to the stats sometime soon is I want to give a rating of enjoyment. Like at the end of the hunt, 1 to 5, 1 being the worst enjoyment, 5 being the best. Because sometimes you can go out and shoot 3 or 4 birds, and you're like, well, that wasn't very much fun. Or you can shoot 3 or 4 birds, you're like, oh my gosh, that was just picturesque and everything was so wonderful. And I feel like my enjoyment level on the hunts was down this year. It's like I did okay, but the hunts just were kind of struggles. I wasn't really quite finishing them properly as much. And so it's like my satisfaction level seemed to be down. But it wasn't a bad year.
And I'm sure that had nothing to do with just limits or how many birds you shot. What do you think was your biggest factor in that, Elliot? Like making
just fewer birds. I was into fewer. I just kept missing
period.
It. Yeah, I just kept missing. Like I would go on trips, and my buddies would be shooting birds, and I'd get there, and it's like, man, you should have been here a couple days. And I still shoot like three or four birds on the hunt, but it's just like one of those struggle hunts where things just aren't right, and it was just more of scratching out and having to work for every bird. I think, I don't know. I think that was more like that.
Yeah. I personally, it's funny because every year it's different, right? Like, I don't know when it was, but I remember a year, 2, 3 years ago, you talking about how you had a really awesome season and mine was down. It's just, it's just funny how the different flyways or even just the timing, like you said, it's a lot of it's timing too.
Right.
Like I just couldn't make it that weekend. And that was the hot one. It was like a year or two ago. I felt like no matter where I went, the other place was always hot.
Right.
And all my friends would be, it's smoking hot in the grasslands. I'm up north. Or then I'd be in the grasslands. Someone would be up north. I'm like, man, I just can't hit it right. So sometimes it's better to be lucky than to be, what's that? How's that saying go? It's better to be lucky than to be something. Someone just told me that the other day. I go, that is pretty true. I said, you still got to you still have to have knowledge and you still got to put the work in, the effort, but luck definitely sure is nice sometimes.
Right. Well, I'm going to butcher this phrase while we're butchering phrases, but it's something like luck is putting yourself in the right place. It's some like definition of the word luck. It's like when preparation and something meets is luck. It's like you do everything you need to do. You put yourself in the right position.
Preparation, opportunity.
Right. There you go. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. It is what it is. But anyways, well, that's about our timeline right there. I appreciate you coming on, and looking forward to being on yours as well. And guys, like I said, check out Elliot's YouTube channel, Freelance Duck Hunting. Great hunts out there, and just great people and good friends of mine. Check them out if you haven't already heard of them before, which I'm sure a lot of you have. Check out Freelance Hunt Stats now, and it'll be changing. When is that kind of gonna? Is there gonna be like an email go out, Elliot, or like will it just
I'll
switch?
Put out some, but I think I'm gonna try to keep the old address active. So if I can, I'm gonna keep it to where if you put in Freelance Hunt Stats, it still gets you there, but the name it'll actually change. I'm hoping that'll change within 3-4 weeks.
Oh wow! So you already have the what do they call that? What's that name? Like
the domain?
The domain. You already own the domain for
I've got the NorthAmericanWaterfowler.com.
Okay.
I've got that domain. I've got the design work done. I actually have a meeting here in 2 hours with a developer to implement the design. So as soon as that gets done, then it's going to go live. So it could be within 2 weeks.
Oh wow!
That all the new changes are up and everything.
Okay.
As far as the design look of it and the name change, it could be within 2 weeks.
Okay, cool. Right on. Well, I'm glad you came on. I appreciate your time. Look forward to talking to you on yours, and Hope you have a good, I know you're looking forward to summer. It's coming up.
Oh, I sure am. 72 something, 72 days off straight is what I get. So I'm looking
Nice.
forward to it. And I always love being on your podcast and it's just never boring talking, having
Yeah.
conversations with you.
Yeah. I always feel like I don't know. Sometimes 50 minutes don't seem like enough, but I guess it leaves you wanting more. So we'll have you on again soon,
Right.
and I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. And when I have you on mine, we're going to deep dive you getting the boat and how that's impacted your hunting life. I've already got the outline, but I'm really excited to really just go deep on, because your hunting to me, as far as my eye, has completely changed since you bought that boat and
Oh,
since
yeah.
you started traveling more into, I think, Washington, Idaho, Northern California. To me, from the outsider, it looks like your hunting life has taken a huge transition in the
Oh,
last few years.
it has. Huge.
And we're going to deep dive that on you
Yeah,
real
guys,
good.
I'm actually glad you brought that up just to kind of let people know what we're going to be talking about. So, and I'll definitely
Mm-hmm.
be sharing that on everything: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I'll talk about here to let you guys know when that's live. But if you go and follow his podcast and you listen to his episodes, you'll see it for yourself. So, I highly suggest you go do that, be part of that. So, looking forward to that conversation.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Thanks for everybody for listening on this episode, and we'll see you guys on the next one.